Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to the Toronto Raptors 95-89 win. I was about to say loss, but win. It felt like it wasn't looking good there for a while, but we won this game. We pulled it out. This game was absolutely ugly. It was one of the most ugliest wins I've ever seen the Toronto Raptors play. You know, they couldn't hit a shot for most of this game. You know, we really only won this game because of how bad the Chicago Bulls played. You know, and they got some decent talent. You know, I can't discredit them a lot, but Zach LaVine shot 3 for 17. Chris Dunn 6 for 15 on that team. You know, Lauri Markkanen 6 for 14. So their top guys weren't shooting high percentages, and neither were ours. So it was just a really ugly game all around. But, you know, the Raptors came on top, and after that Magic loss, you know, we got to have some optimism, at least on the podcast, because we've seen that we can lose these types of games. So the fact that we won it is an improvement, at least upon the last game. So we'll get straight into the players. First, we got to talk about Kawhi Leonard, and a weird game from Kawhi tonight, because statistically, he was a monster. 27 points, 9 rebounds, no assists, which is pretty interesting, but yeah, no steals. That's rare for Kawhi, but pretty, 27-9 is always a solid stat line, but if you watch this game, he didn't really look that great tonight. You know, he got his numbers, which is impressive, and which is probably speaks to how talented he is, because even on an off night, he's able to get those numbers. But 8-22 from the field, 1 for 6 from the 3-point line, missing a lot of shots that he usually gets. You know, the Chicago Bulls, not the greatest defensive team. They gave us a lot of looks that we really should have made, and Kawhi was no exception. He missed a few open threes, missed a few open jumpers, some of those shots around the rim, but nonetheless, he scored them. Maybe not every time we needed them, but at some points, to win this game against the Chicago Bulls, he did enough. So shout out to Kawhi. He's been very good for us. He's been he's our superstar. He's our main guy. We can't bag on him too much for having a poor shooting night, and he still dropped these great numbers. So shout out to Kawhi. He's out here doing it for us on a night-to-night basis, especially with Kyle Lowry out. It's nice to see him carry the load and at least get some wins against the Chicago Bulls. But Fred VanVleet, he's been getting the start for Kyle Lowry. He's been doing, for the most part, he's been doing a really good job ever since Kyle Lowry went out. But the past couple games, he's struggled to really find his shot. And Fred VanVleet's a pretty streaky player, in my opinion, especially this season. It's kind of weird because last year he was the embodiment of steadiness. We called him Steady Freddy. You always had faith in him, and he'd always hit the open shots, and he was steady. He was steady, he was consistent. And this year it's been an up and down year because he was absolutely struggling at the start of this game. Couldn't throw a ball in the ocean, and he hit a layup. He made a layup and got going a little bit, hit some threes, got to the rim, made some free throws, hit a few shots, and then he started missing shots again. Apparently he missed 16 straight shots if you include the game from last game until he made that layup. So I love Fred's confidence. He's never afraid to take the shots, and even when he's in a slump, he still shoots them. And that sounds like something that you describe J.R. Smith. He's not that bad. He's not that bad of a decision maker and has no conscience whatsoever. But he has a bit of some semblance of J.R. Smith in the sense he's never going to give up on a shot, which is a very positive thing. But Fred plays best when he's making the best decisions. And when the shot's struggling, you want him to try and take easier ones and maybe not the dribble pulls with people in his face. So that's something that I'd recommend for Fred VanVleet. When you're struggling, when you're non-confident, it's similar to what I was saying about Lowry when he had his poor games. He had those averaging 4 points per game over 6-point stretch. Then he got some easy shots and he started playing well again. Same thing with Fred VanVleet. He needs to get some easy shots when he's in these sorts of slumps, because then he gets his rhythm. He's a streaky player. Once he sees the ball go through a hoop, whether it's a layup or free throws, then he starts hitting his other shots. But when he misses 1-2 long balls, tough shots, and he forces more, he's not going to make them. So Fred, just get some easy shots when you do them. You start playing a lot better, because he's been a lot better, and he had 7 assists tonight, which is also a great 5 rebounds, all-around game. But we just want to see some more consistency out of Fred. Danny Green hit a couple threes. Nothing too special, just your average Danny Green game. Serge Ibaka looked pretty rough around the edges tonight. Ever since Jonas has been out, he's been looking similar to the Serge Ibaka of old, of last season. And I think the Jonas-Serge dynamic has been perfect on Ibaka because he doesn't have to carry too much of the load. You can run him out at the center position when there's not a huge big guy on the other team, and he's not playing smaller minutes, and he only played 24 minutes tonight, but I think he's getting a bit worn out being the number one, because Jonas and Serge have been 1A, 1B. You could argue which one has been top, probably Serge because he started more games, but Jonas carries pretty well equal load, and you can't count on Greg Monroe to do that, so Serge has been struggling in that role. He struggled in it last season when he was our starting power forward. With Serge's current place in his career, it's not something for him to do. So hopefully Jonas gets a speedy recovery. I'm not sure how long he's got left with that thumb injury, but they said a month upon when it happened. But you never know with the Raptors because they don't like to leak a lot of information about injuries. Kyle Lowry also out tonight. So hopefully Jonas comes back soon. No shade on Kyle Lowry there, but yeah, I hope he comes back quick. And Pascal Siakam had a pretty solid game. He missed some easy ones, and it's pretty surprising because he had a very great field goal percentage, 7 of 12 from the field, 20 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists. Solid game from Siakam, but he missed some easy ones on top of it. He could have easily probably had 30 points off, 4 or 5 layups or tips around the rim he missed. But Siakam had a solid game. It's nice to see him have a little bounce back. He looked a bit out of control at times. The stat line doesn't. No one really looked really, really good tonight. You could probably argue Siakam played the best, but it wasn't a great game all around for the Raptors. OG, he hit a 3 with confidence at the beginning of the game, which is pretty cool. Norman Powell, his first stretch, his first run, he's been making better decisions, but he went 0 for 5 from the 3-point line tonight, so you really want to see those shots fall for Norm, and I'm sure they will with his better decision-making. DeLon, 8 points, had a... Still doing the same thing that DeLon does pretty well every game. Nothing too bad. He's still a very playable, solid rotation piece, but doesn't stand out really whatsoever on the court when he's out there. So hopefully DeLon can really break out a little bit these next few games while Kyle Lowry's still out. Greg Monroe, he really doesn't look good. I know he's guarding Lopez, which is kind of weird because Lopez you think would be a solid matchup for him. Most of his minutes he's out there with Lopez, but the Bulls have They ran a pretty fast pace. I don't know what the Bulls were running, to be 100% honest, on offense. But Greg Monroe, I really want to root for the guy because I was a huge fan of him in Detroit. He's shown that he can score and all those sorts of things. But offensively, he really didn't have it down the lane. You'd think against a more traditional big man that he'd be able to get those points, and he's not worried about them stretching the floor. And I thought he'd do a lot better against Robin Lopez, but really didn't have it going tonight, and obviously he can't guard Lauri Markkanen out of the 3-point line, so it's kind of unfortunate in my opinion, because ever since Jonas has gone out, Greg Monroe was once, a pretty substantial, one of the better centers in the NBA. He got one of those max contracts from the Milwaukee Bucks. He was a legitimate center in this NBA. One of those guys that was supposed to carry the way for big men coming through. If you'd asked anyone in 2012 where Greg Monroe would be right now in his career, most people would say he'd be a 20-10 big man that's a force down low, but obviously the league changed, but he still should be able to contribute on the court, right, on a consistent night-to-night basis. I'm not saying he's incapable, because he's had some great games relatively for how his position on the team this season, but the fact that Jonas has been out and he really hasn't been able to step up is really unfortunate, because I thought he'd be able to bring back some of the Greg Monroe of old since Jonas has been out, but I haven't really seen it, because offensively he's supposed to be a really good player, and I've shown it, because I used to watch a good few Pistons games. He could pass the ball, he can finish down the lane, and we know defensively he's not really going to be able to do it, but offensively you'd expect him to be more of a force, and he hasn't been. So hopefully Greg Monroe, while Jonas is out, can maybe take some of the load off Serge and step up his game, especially on the offensive end. And finally, we got to talk about him. We probably have to make a segment piece on him. Just Chris Boucher is out here playing. When he goes out there, he's looking very impressive. And this isn't a state from, Raptors homer biasness, even though that is the case for some things on this podcast. But, I wasn't too high. I really like Deng Odell in preseason. And Chris Boucher is out here proving why he got that two-way spot and proving he needs more run in the rotation. I just bagged on Greg Monroe. I don't want to trash on him. I like him as a player, but especially if we're playing a team that doesn't have too many big men, they're running Lauri Markkanen most of the time at the center position. I think you gotta run Chris Boucher at that center spot. He gave us 5 minutes, and the Raptors went on a nice run. He's out there contributing. He hit a 3 with confidence. He missed 1. He only got 2 shots, but he got 2 blocks. He was impacting the game with his ridiculous length. With his weight, he might not do it too much for you on the defensive end in terms of rebounding, but he changes shots, he gets blocks, and that's the thing. He's in the right place where he's supposed to be. He has solid defensive IQ, and despite his frame, he knows where to be. It's similar to the Jakob Poeltl sense that he knows where to be on defense. Now, Yak didn't have the athleticism or the length, the natural athleticism that Boucher has. getting blocks and getting up there at a high level, even though Yak was pretty quick on his feet. Boucher got some talent, and maybe in a small ball league, it might be tough to run him, against Joel Embiid or something who could completely bully him down low. But I think against a lot of teams, he could run the center position, and he's a power forward by trade. So if you have him out there, especially with CJ now completely out of the rotation, he was out there chilling in street clothes. He didn't take off his sweats the whole game. But he seemed engaged on the bench regardless. There's minutes for Boucher to be had. Nick Nurse he gave him some run in the second quarter. I was kind of disappointed to not see him get some run in the second half, but you got to earn your minutes, and hopefully he gets a few more next game, because in my opinion, he came out and produced tonight. There's no one else really to talk about. Lorenzo got some run as well for about 3 minutes, didn't do too much in him. So we shall swing it straight into the segments, and tonight, the Kawhi you doing like that play of the day, it's got to go to my guy Boucher. It's got to go to Chris Boucher. Came out in the game and immediately. Zach LaVine, didn't have the greatest game tonight, but he's been having an awesome season. Went to the lane, and as soon as Boucher checked in, he immediately swatted a shot back. Zach LaVine's of all people. Some people are afraid to even defend Zach LaVine at the rim, afraid they're going to get dunked on, and this guy is no fear. Came out, swatted that stuff right into the. Jack was trying to figure out how to get that garbage out of there, said in French. I have no idea personally, despite the fact I live in Montreal, but. Someone's got to let him know, because that was an exciting play. Got the fans hyped. There's a few plays out there, but Chris Boucher, I think it's his first Kawhi you do him like that play of the day. So shout out to him. Not all plays though could be the Kawhi you do him like that play of the day, and some just make you say, "Oh, jeez." And tonight the OGs, it's going to the Chicago Bulls. It's going to. I usually give it to. Last season we gave the OGs a lot to other teams. This year I don't even know if we have on any of the pods, but. This one, it was a definitive play, because if you say OGs watching the TV, if you say it, it's got to be given. And Zach LaVine came down the lane. Robin Lopez was underneath the rim, and he completely barreled into his own teammate. Robin Lopez went straight to the floor, and he got up and he started complaining to the ref. Zach LaVine was like a wrecking ball, and he took out Robin Lopez. No Raptor touched either of them. And then Robin Lopez gets up and immediately starts barking at the ref. I'm not one of those people that gets mad at people complaining for refs, but it's pretty funny when it's your own teammate who took you out and you're still complaining. So definitely made me say, oh, geez, watching this game. And finally, the DeMar Carroll Gold Star Award. It's going to the Raptors. It could be the whole game, because the shots really weren't falling the whole time, but the first quarter, we had 14 points by the end of it. We were on pace for 56-point game. That's not how you want to be playing against the Chicago Bulls. That's not where you want to be at, but the shots just weren't going in. No one could hit anything, so Raptors getting the DeMar Carroll Gold Star Award at the first quarter. Anyways, this game, there's not too much to talk about. We were playing the Chicago Bulls. We won, but it was an ugly game. The winning kind of sets aside how poorly we played, because I'd probably be on here a lot more angry if we lost again. But the Raptors definitely need to play better. But we won, so we can't complain too much. Honestly, hopefully now we got a couple tougher games. We can. I think we play DeMar coming up this week as well. So we got to be ready for that one. That's going to be a really fun one. Anyways, you're the best for making it this far. I've rambled along way too much for this podcast for this game. Little update. Last podcast came out later. I had the pod recorded right after the game, and the video said it was going to take 6 hours to upload, and I was messing my router, my home Wi-Fi. I'm away from Montreal. I'm in Newfoundland again, and the home router is not a good look. So I apologize if this podcast is out late as well. I just want to, because I know not everyone follows the Instagram. I gave a little announcement on the Instagram there, so if you want to keep up with when the pods are coming out, follow us on the Instagram. But yeah, so I apologize if this one's out later as well. Hopefully the Wi-Fi is a bit nicer to me tonight. Anyways, Raptors win. Ugly game, but W nonetheless. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. I'm signing out. Cheers.